still on River State. Now, earlier in the week, River State was it started last week, Saturday. The election held, and what happened, sort of. So, I think I made a monologue out of that because it was surprising that even without police protection, that election was relatively free and fair. And everything went smoothly, and nobody or whatever, until probably after the election, some violence and in different areas were actually recorded or reported. So, Barrister, the confusion, River State political confusion, so many confusion here and there. The thing, I don't know, the court actually was instrumental to this confusion. Um, Tinubu intervened, and in my own judgment, he intervened. If you want to play, a middleman, you have to be seen to be fair, sort of. So, and let's start from the judges. What do you think? What do you think about the conflicting judgments that actually was prior to this election? That actually caused all this problem here and there.
As I mentioned in our last discussion, the judgment represented a further show of shame on our judiciary. Now, there are constitutional provisions, there are statutory provisions. The statutory and constitutional provisions or duty of the police force is the maintenance of law and order. How can you go to a court and a court will go ahead and give an order that will have the effect of removing that duty from the police, have the effect of saying the police cannot maintain law and order in that state? So it does not make sense. A court should never make such an order. There are other ways to stop the election by simply seeking for an order that the election should not hold, not going around trying to get the police not to provide security in the hope that if the police do not provide security, the election will be aborted.
That was the anticipation, yes.
You
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, there was, I think, from your own end.
That a court should not have made such an order. And then again, you see the Federal High Court in Abuja making the order, and then the State High Court in Rivers responding with a contrary order. This is a show of shame. It is about time that the judiciary gets its act together. It's about time that the judiciary refuse to be used by politicians to achieve their nefarious objectives. We don't need that.
Now let's go. The next question is, I don't know if you followed the local government election, how everything was done, conducted and finished, completed, and result announced. And as we all know, all the APP, I don't know how they got that name. In fact, I was shocked when I heard that APP, that party name or whatever. So they are probably the governor improvised by using that as a special purpose vehicle. This time around, not to move money around, but to move political figures around. Sort of. So we used that to actually run, and every day APP swept the entire poll, and they won the election. So what do you, as a lawyer, what is a governor on the right footing with the local government, the conduct of the local government election, the announcement of the results, and the issuance of swearing in? I think he has sworn them in, swearing in of the local government chairpersons. What do you think about that? Is the law on his side?
Definitely. if you go to the Constitution, the affairs of the local government have been left to the states. Even the conduct of local government elections have been removed from the INEC, the national INEC, and vested in the state independent electoral commissions. So each state has its own INEC that conducts local government elections. It's a fact throughout Nigeria that all the states have conducted elections to local governments. And that is where the issue comes, because every state, when they conduct the election, they make sure that their own party, the party the governor belongs, sweeps the election 100%. It is actually a sham election because it has happened in all the 36 states. On the same day that Rivers State conducted election was conducted in Benue State. As a matter of fact, the matter was brought to the Senate and they passed a resolution that conduct of local government election throughout the country is a sham. And they will want to find a way whereby a neutral body or the federal INEC, national INEC, should be conducting local government elections. But as far as the law is concerned, the state INEC is charged with the responsibility to conduct election and announce, and the governor, once the results are announced, he has the right to swear in the elected people.
Yeah, but that...
In this case, the governor realized that he is a PDP member. He was elected on the platform of the PDP. He has never announced that he has left the PDP. But in the dispute that came up between himself and his former godfather, Wike, whereby the national executive of the party handed the PDP structures in Rivers State to his opponent, that's Wike, he could not sponsor his candidate on the platform of the PDP. So he told them to contest on the platform of the APP, which is...
And PDP also joined with the APC to dispute the conduct of the election.
Exactly, because they know that this is a local government election. Once the governor has chosen another party, they stand no chance of winning even a councillor. So they have their interest, the PDP's interest and that of the APC are joint. They are the joint losers. Once the governor decided to use another platform for his supporters to contest, which is an existing political party, APP. And you can see that he directed all his people to contest on the platform of the APP, and they won everything, including the consulorships. That is just the way local government elections are staged in Nigeria.
Yeah, that is so unfortunate. Now, Tinubu intervened. If I watched, I listened, I read the intervention of Tinubu. Why will you want to, you have come in as a mediator. You only mention one person's name. You didn't mention the other person's name. So he technically technically blamed Ubara for the violence, the unrest that happened in River State, sort of. So anyway, I wasn't surprised because Wike is getting his oxygen from the president himself. So it's that this is they are planning this together. It's all about 2027. They just want to capture River State, make sure River State is in their hands, sort of. So that's not what is your take on the president's intervention? I don't know if you have the same thought as me.
Well, the president's intervention and the mentioning of the governor's name can be argued that is on the basis that the governor, by prescriptions on paper, is the chief security officer of the state. So should there be a breakdown in law and order, it is his responsibility. Should there be a threat to the peace, it is his responsibility. So the president calling on the governor is in line with what the provisions of the law state. But in practice, it is a different ball game. And in River State, the president is well aware of the issues on ground. The issue is more than stating the obvious which the law has stated. Even under the Constitution, the governor has the right to give directives to the Commissioner of Police. But the Commissioner of Police also has the right to decline some directives from the governor. So the power of the governor as chief security officer is not absolute. In fact, it's really watered down. So in a case where you have an opponent that has federal power, in this case, Wike, and the governor is there, you can see the problem that will arise. Because if his opponent is using the federal might, including the IG of the police, whatever the governor says the commissioner of police should do, the IG can countermand it, or the federal power can countermand it, and the commissioner of police will prefer or is under an obligation to take the instructions from the IG or from the federal government. So that is the predicament a governor face.
And the same, they want to, finish, please, finish up.
So the president is aware that there are two strong factions, the governor and Wike's faction. In the aftermath of the election, there was a lot of, during the election itself, it went peacefully. But in the aftermath, there was a lot of destruction, burning of secretariat, causing of, you could know as the chief or the president, because you receive security report, you know exactly who is perpetrating the crisis.
Yeah.
It can only be the people who did not, or the faction that did not win, or the factions that lost. It cannot be the person who won that will go ahead and be burning secretariat. We go ahead and barricade secretariat that nobody will enter. So if the president, if it's not political considerations, I want to protect my own people as well. If it's purely on security initiative and the imperative to maintain peace, he would call the other people to order, either privately or publicly. But of course, nothing is separated from politics in Nigeria. Yeah. So he will need to protect his own people. So you can now see that in the way he framed his own discourse on the issue.
Yeah, and this issue of calling the governor chief security officer, yet not actually, it's not absolute. That is one dilemma. Now they are, just like you mentioned earlier, they are even debating to take away the power to conduct local government election from the governor. So that is my problem is, I don't know why people are talking about federalism, that we should start practicing federalism. Why we are talking about that, we have the National Assembly, people at the federal level still fighting to even make the center more powerful. We are trying to have a devolution of power from the center to the 6 geopolitical zones. They are still insisting on pulling more power from the states to the federal level, for God's sake, making the presidential system even much more powerful. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why people at the federal level, they just want to eat their cake and have it. They don't want to be the ones controlling the entire country, for God's sake, which is wrong.
What is happening is all these personalities, all these offices, the comment they make are not nationalistic. They are not in the interest. Any comment you see people make in Nigeria is for their immediate and narrow interest. For example, I have argued on this platform that the Supreme Court had no reason, had no basis constitutionally and otherwise to rule that funds going to the local government should be paid directly to the local government. This is a direct amendment of the Constitution. It's a very clear issue. The Supreme Court has ruled before when Tinubu was governor of Lagos, and the federal government withheld their allocation to the local governments. The Supreme Court made it clear that there was no constitutional provision under which the federal government could withdraw or withhold allocations meant for local government to the states. The Constitution said if the money coming to the local government should be paid to the states through the joint account. That's very clear. How will the Supreme Court now direct?
They're not
that
making laws. That's what it
that
means.
not just making law, ignoring and abolishing a clear provision of the Constitution. It's not their duty. If you find a problem in the system, in the Constitution, the only way you can do is to amend. Go through the process and amend. But the Nigerian politics, and one of the reasons why we have continually said that it is failing, it has failed, is that when they are confronted with a challenge, like the challenge that, okay, the states are preferring the local government funds. So what do? We say, yes, this is what the Constitution says. It's not ideal. So let's put in motion a process to amend the Constitution to take away that power. But it has come to a position in Nigeria that when you are confronted with that problem, you just go and arrange with the Supreme Court to just make a judgment as if that provision does not exist.
These guys are...
And this is not the first time this is happening. When President Yaradua was sick, they came with, I believe David Mark was president of Senate at that time. They came with a provision that the doctrine of necessity required that the power should be handed over to the vice president, that is Jonathan.
Yes.
There is nothing, absolutely, I'm telling you that there's nothing in law called doctrine of necessity. So they invented it to avoid the provisions of they were saved about 3 different provisions of the Constitution to deal with the issue. But politically, it was not convenient for them to resort to those provisions. So they simply ignored it and came with the nebulous idea that doctrine of necessity means that they have to transfer. There's nothing like that. Even assuming there's anything like doctrine of necessity, it will only apply when there is no constitutional or legal process that you can follow to solve the problem. In this case, there were several constitutional provisions. For instance, the cabinet could meet and pass a resolution that the president was incapacitated and direct the 3 physicians to examine the president and report. The National Assembly also had power to impeach the president who is incapacitated. They did not follow this and then claimed that out of necessity, the president was not well. So because of that, there was a situation of necessity. So they passed a resolution that power should be transferred. This is the serial manner in which the political actors in Nigeria treat the Constitution, which is supposed to be venerated, which is supposed to be the ground norm, the highest law that everybody should submit to. But whenever it does not suit them, like in the case of local government, they just arrange with the Supreme Court to give this fraudulent, what I call fraudulent judgment that bypasses the constitutional provision altogether.
Yeah, this is so sad because
to add to that, just yesterday, the Senate president, I heard him saying that they will need a constitutional amendment for the funds to go direct to the local government.
Which is the reality.
Yes.
It is the truth, yeah.
That is what is supposed to be, but the Supreme Court has already given judgment that the funds should be sent direct to the local government. But they ran into a problem because the provisions are
okay. Now, as it is now, let me ask you now. As it is now, okay. This is I think this is this question is germane. Based on what is done now, can the National Assembly overturn the Supreme Court?
Well, the National Assembly was cap in hand with the president to achieve this purpose.
No, forget about this political stuff. Can as it is now, the Constitution, the Supreme Court obviously contravened the Constitution. So that is just there. So in this case, can the National Assembly objectively overturn the judgment of the Supreme Court by passing into law?
Definitely. Definitely. There are two ways. There are 2 ways to avoid or override a Supreme Court judgment. The first one is by the Supreme Court overriding itself in subsequent judgment. The second one is by legislation. If the Supreme Court gives a judgment that it is not in the interest of the National Assembly can pass legislation, particularly overriding that judgment.
Okay.
So
Wow,
these
that's
are
good.
the two instances why a judgment of the Supreme Court can be overridden.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. I think that means there's still hope for
But
future change. Anything.
in this case, the National Assembly is working hand in hand with the
Yes.
federal government
Yeah.
to ensure that the state governments do not get the allocation.
Correct. I
So
understand
they
that.
are on the side of this thing.
Yes. Unfortunately.
After the judgment, the state governors met the president instead of challenging say, look, what the Supreme Court did, they did not. They say, give us time. Let us conduct, because the president was now threatening to withhold the allocation to local government based on the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That any local government that was not being run by democratically elected officials would not receive allocation from, of which the Supreme Court has earlier ruled that there's no provision in the Constitution for the federal government to withhold the funds under any guise.
Yeah.
So the state government, they entered into an agreement with the president, give us 3 months, we will conduct elections. So that is why they were rushing. Those who have not conducted were rushing. Plateau has conducted, Benue has conducted, Rivers conducted. They are all rushing to meet that so that the
Money
funds
matter.
meant for their local government will go to their local government.
Yeah, just tell human beings, especially not just not just in Nigeria. The moment you tell human beings that if you don't do this, you won't get this money. Trust whatever it takes, they will go. When money is involved, trust human beings, they will eventually get it done. That is just even so. I think similar thing happens in the US, where the president threatens a state or institution, or especially educational institutions where there are some policies that are anti people, where sometimes government threatens if you don't stop this policy, they will withdraw funding for the institution, and the next thing they withdraw that policy or whatever. So it happens.